Hey there, this is Thomas Goss. I've been working on the follow-up videos to my Sibelius 7 review, and they are taking forever. The script for the review of the sounds is now over 5,000 words with no end in sight. So I'm chopping up that script into shorter videos. Each one will cover a different instrumental group from the most to least realistic. You've waited long enough, so here goes with the best of the bunch, the percussion samples. It's pretty much a given that percussion sounds, along with keyboard and guitar sounds, will be the most realistic in any sound set. Sound developers have been paying the most attention to these instruments since the beginning of the digital sampling era. But let's set aside the long history of electronic drum triggers and pianos in a box for a minute. It's a simple fact that a percussive attack followed by a quick decay is much easier to duplicate realistically than a long sustained note from strings, brass, or winds. So it's only natural that the new Sibelius percussion sounds would be the best in the set. All the same, I was impressed by the fine details that helped bring a sense of reality to the samples. For instance, check out how the timpani head sizzles when the dynamic is pushed. Here's another cool detail. Listen to the overtones that hang over the end of this tam-tam roll. All of the bell-like sounds are excellent in this regard, with a great attack, nice sustain, and realistic overtone series. The drums are all vastly improved. The snare is nice and crisp, the tenor drum has a tighter yet deeper sound, and the bass drum is absolutely devastating. It's such a refreshing change from the previous sound sets that substituted a rock kick drum sound in place of a bass drum. Here, a young orchestrator can hear just how huge a bass drum really is, and hopefully make a wiser decision about when and where to use it. Sibelius 7's mixer panel has a new feature called Smart Buttons, which fine-tune the different patches. These buttons are available for both snare and bass drums, helping to refine the dynamic response by letting you tweak the different mics, like room mics, direct mics, overheads, and so on. You can also adjust room size for the snare. Listen to the difference in these three settings. An ongoing problem, though, is Sibelius's inability to provide a good suspended cymbal sound with a variety of beaters. After all these years and revisions, we are still left with only two options: either use the cymbal pair sound, or the cymbals off the drum kits. No, I'm sorry, this is just not good enough. Suspended cymbal is a distinct instrument and sounds like neither of these other sounds. As of Sibelius 7, I still cannot score a whooshing crescendo with soft beaters. That is such a fundamental element of orchestration, and yet we don't have it. The mallet instruments are all excellent, with a very realistic envelope to keep them from sounding too clangy and sustainy. I especially appreciate how the motor setting on the vibes can now be set as one of the smart buttons. That is extremely helpful. This really is a great ensemble of percussion instruments, and I just don't have time to get into more of them individually, but all of the samples I've tried so far are excellent. The only exception is the lack of a suspended cymbal sound, so I'm giving this selection of the orchestra a 9.5. There are other orchestral percussion VSLs that do even more than the Sibelius 7 percussion sounds in terms of variety and tweakability, but that doesn't make them any more or less realistic than these sounds. I'll see you in the next review in this series, covering the keyboard and harp sounds.